As soon as I saw a character in a bird mask, or at least what I assumed to be a bird mask, I thought to myself, we're gonna see humans a lot quicker than I initially thought. I thought maybe the first time we see a human will be in a cage or something, and maybe Somali will have like a, hey, why is someone like me in a cage? Is that gonna happen to me? Something like that. But the fact that it happened to a dying man just needing a cure, probably something to do with a lack of blood, as seen by the harpy wanting to basically take Somali's blood and give it to him, to see what they built up as it was a sweet episode but a depressing episode wrapped up into one. This just continues to show that there's so many ways to make the formula of this parent and child relationship continue to feel exhilarating while having that darker undertone be presented in a more cheerful and positive light, and I love it. I mean, this episode was incredible. I don't think Somali's gonna get her head cut off or anything like that. I mean, if we were at episode 11, I might be sweating a bit more, but it is nice to see that, in a lot of ways, I feel like if the Golem was presented with an obstacle of needing to kill someone to protect Somali, or not killing and having Somali's life be in danger, I kind of feel like logically, he might do a similar thing of doing the extreme for her case. Obviously, it would go against logic in a lot of ways for the Golem, but presented an obstacle that he can't comprehend, who knows what would happen to this almost machine-like being, right? Emotions are starting to flow his way, so it's not even like you can blame the harpy in a lot of ways. Like, she's a very cheerful, and I love her personality. She's like just a really interesting character that I hope that they can work this out in a more peaceful manner, because I'd love to see these characters travel together, especially because there is someone who else is human. And I mean, granted, this guy could easily die, who the hell knows, or there could be a very simple cure for his ailment. You don't really know, but I'm not mad that she's attempting it. I will only be mad if she actually succeeds in it. It's something that I think if we were put into like a situation where these two characters were our focus characters since the very beginning, we'd feel the complete opposite if the Golem was trying to stop it, right? We'd feel conflicted, like, oh, this is an innocent girl, but we've traveled with our main character for 5 episodes now. We don't want to see him die. So that's what I really like about this episode, is that it definitely presents you a theme and a message that you don't want to see go through, but if we were only focusing on them, we might have a different opinion, but also still side with him saying, hey, please stop him. I'm glad that they didn't drag on the whole, like, they were both human for too long, because I figured it was pretty obvious, unless there really was a species in this world that just looked like they had a mask on their face, which I wouldn't put it past it, but based on all the creatures that we've seen, they seemed very much like if an animal evolved, or just like, it didn't feel like it was a attached on item and things like that. You look at Somali, she has a hood on. You look at this man, he has a mask on and like fake feet on, right? It just felt like something was off there, so I was really happy that immediately by the end of the episode, it's just out of the bag. Somali's human, I'm human, stop her, she's going to do something that she's going to regret. Because even if she did take the blood, like, the whole thing with humans is there's different blood types, right? I mean, that would be a gamble in itself, and you could very well kill him if it is just like a blood transfusion or something to that nature. But I like that. I like how they set up a really interesting conflict that is completely different than anything we've seen so far, while also relating to something we have seen with the whole illness which Somali just recently got over. And I love that. I think there's a lot of possibilities for what could happen with these 4 characters, and who knows where the Golem will go, because if the Golem gets there in time, before, like, she either accepts that this is wrong or Somali breaks free somehow, what would happen? Would he, like, grab her by the head? Would he do something violent? Or would he be very cool, calm, and collected, saying, this is stupid, this is why it wouldn't work? There's a lot of ways that they can go, but just based on the relationship that this harpy's been forming with Somali, I love how much of a kid she was acting. Like, she just kept asking questions. You can ask any parent what a child is like growing up, and they just ask questions. I can even remember it from my own childhood of how much of an annoying asshole I was just asking questions on every little thing, and I love how they seem very similar, but also just like, God, you ask so many questions, or God, you're annoying. You know, it's just this very adorable, almost like it was a sister relationship. And that's why I'm curious if it'll go the route of maybe she'll recognize her own, like, shortcomings, like, this is stupid, like, would I really want to kill someone who's so innocent just for him? But it is a very conflicting concept. It's a very conflicting option here of, like, you know, time's clearly running out, and time's clearly been running out for these characters. And pretty much it kind of seems like a mirror of either, like, a brother and sister relationship, a father and daughter relationship, maybe there's romantic undertones. Like, there's a lot of ways that they can take their relationship, but it's clear it's a very similar concept to what we have with our Golem and Somali, of something that you don't want to see separated, but unfortunately the truth is saying that it's going to happen sooner or later, and especially because humans are such a dying species that are just literally raised for cattle, there's not a lot of medicine that can probably do much wonders, but who knows, maybe the Golem will have a trick up his sleeve and just needs a nice little cool drink with a couple of drops here and there and he'll be alright. You really don't know, but who knows, it kind of gives me a flashback to when we realized that the Golem was going to go out sooner rather than later. It just kind of feels like, hey, why don't we all just be friends, so like when they both die, you at least have each other, right? I mean, it's a sick thought, but I mean, at this point, it kind of seems like the only thought that could necessarily happen in the long run. I thought the intro to this episode, just the goodbye scene with Kikila and Somali was so adorable. Like, if somehow, like, they find a way to save the Golem, or just, like, the location that they go to is just, like, it's not where they need to go, and they gotta travel back through the desert, please let Somali see this family again. It was such an adorable sequence, and just getting those side eyes, realizing, like, hey, my dad gave me this promise that everything's gonna be okay, and just, you know, logically knowing it's not gonna be okay, but then that optimistic side of everyone's like, well, maybe it could be okay. We don't know a lot about this world, so who knows? Maybe he could be telling the truth. Obviously, it just is our, like, empathy towards Somali just saying, like, yeah, it's gonna be okay. But then the realistic part of us being like, you're an idiot, it's not gonna be okay. And I love that kind of like fighting back and forth of like the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, just kind of fighting and whispering in your ear of what's gonna happen by the end. And you just kind of want to side with the angel, even though the devil's making a whole lot of sense at this moment. That shit's gonna be tear-worthy by the end of the story. And once again, this show is doing world building right. Now, when we first get introduced to this, like, basically like rocks forming over, it kind of looks like you're inside a volcano. I love that. It's just like those little details that you immediately look and you understand why a civilization would build their town in the middle of a desert inside basically a trapped location, because it's the perfect way to stop sandstorms. You'll see like a giant tortoise just kind of rise up. It's like, oh, is that a sand turtle? What the hell is that? Or you'll see like the shark. Like, there's so many, like, little visual details that immediately tell you what's going to happen, or why things have happened, or how the world's evolved, and it just makes it feel, once again, like there's so much life to this world. Not even just with the general speaking characters, but just the wildlife in general, and the wildlife can be pretty menacing, I have to say. And I think I've come to the conclusion that my favorite parts of any episode is when they give us those silent montages, where the only bits of sound is a beautiful piece of music playing, and the characters are just traveling. You'll see them fixing a wheel, or you'll see them cooking, things like that. There's literally no dialogue, just a little bit of movement, and then sometimes a slideshow presentation, but it feels like so much is happening, as if we're watching days upon days of travel, and we don't need dialogue to understand the emotion behind those moments. It doesn't happen every episode, but every time they have delivered those moments, it just feels so mesmerizing and magical that you kind of think this could have been a silent movie, and it would still be just as amazing as it currently is. Like, it just feels so impressive, and there was a moment, I forget like the exact sounding of the track, but it's around the middle portion. Sometimes the music in this show reminds me of The Legend of Zelda. If you played like Ocarina of Time, things like that, there's certain tracks when you like enter villages and things like that, that just like, it immediately tells you the flavor of the village, or how you're supposed to feel about the wonders that you're seeing, and there's music in this show that just reminds me of that, and that's my favorite game of all time, right? So it's like, every time I hear music like kind of has that reminiscent feel of The Legend of Zelda, it just makes this journey all the more magical, the same way when I first saw Hyrule and Legend of Zelda, it's like, holy shit, this is a world that I've never seen before, but it's so full of life and wonder. And in a similar way, even though that's more of an action-adventure game, it's a role-playing game in that sense, this is still like this adventure, this wonder of a world we have no idea, but every time we look at a new place or scene, it just feels like there's something we haven't seen before, and that's so amazing. I think this episode, in a lot of ways, might be my favorite of the series to date. Like, it feels like the conflict is the main reason why I'm loving it so much, because it feels like a mirror to what the Golem's dealing with himself, just more driven by emotion at the beginning rather than emotion over time, slowly but surely. And I'm really curious to see where they're going to take episode 6, because I think there's a lot of ways to stop this action, but I also think there's a lot of possibility to recover what seemingly has just been broken by clearly a growing bond that they both cared for. I think this Harpy and Somali have grown in an almost sister dynamic, and I would be disappointed to see it completely shatter, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did, if the Golem's like, I can never trust you again, because that would be the logical outcome. Like, you cannot be trusted if just after a couple of days you tried to kill her, right? I definitely think there's a lot of possibilities, and as always, I leave an episode just both smiling but also having that worry, and that's something I'm really appreciating, that it's not just pure lovey-dovey and it's not pure depressing subject matter. It's that nice hybrid where a majority of what you see and what you do in this show, it feels so good, but there is that darker undertone that present enough that you don't forget it, but it doesn't overwhelm you either, so you don't feel depressed, just maybe a little worried at certain moments throughout the show. This anime is absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait for episode 6 next week, but let me know your thoughts down in that comment section below. What did you think if you're either an anime original, source material reader? Let me know where you think it might go next week. Please no spoilers. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.